Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Musician's Mentor podcast. As per usual, I'm your host, Travis Mark, and I'm so happy to have you here with me today as I speak to one of my absolute favorite musicians, the one and only Mr. Alain Johannes. If you're into the alt rock scene, you've definitely heard this guy's music. Alain has been involved with projects like Cornell, Queens of the Stone Age, Mark Lanegan, PJ Harvey, No Doubt, them Crooked Vultures, the Sound City Players, even the famous Desert Session project led up by Josh Homme. Alain came to prominence in the 90s, firstly with his band What Is This, then later Walk the Moon, which eventually became 11, which he led alongside his, unfortunately now late wife, Natasha Shneider. This guy's just a beast of a musician, songwriter, producer, composer, engineer, multi-instrumentalist. Definitely someone you want to check out just to get a better understanding of different instruments and different approaches. So I was so happy to secure him for the podcast just because I've been following this guy for about 25, 30 years. I can't thank Alain enough for his time. So I'm going to stop my blabbering. We're going to jump straight into this. But as usual, before I do that, please let me remind you to leave us a rating or review on your preferred streaming platform. Don't forget to check out our affiliate partnership with the lovely folks over at Soundbrenner. And just make sure you check out all things Alain Johannes related. This guy's just an absolute rock star in my eyes. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Alain Johannes. For me to say that I'm excited for today's interview is a real understatement. I am talking to multi-instrumentalist, producer, engineer, songwriter, just all-round talented dude, Mr. Alain Johannes. Man, I'm so excited. I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I know that you've got your own stuff going on. So the fact that you've just given me some time, I'm truly humbled. We're going to start this in the same way that I start all of these things. Now, even though I'm going to do a introduction post our interview and hype you up with all of the credits that you've got to your name, what I do is I ask everybody to please tell our listeners a little bit about who Alain Johannes is.
Okay. Well, my name is Alain Johannes. I've been a musician since I can remember. My first memories are of music, and I got a guitar put in my hand by my uncle Peter, who was a rad musician, part of a Nueva Ola in Chile, and he showed me some chords when I was 4 years old. And that was around the time a lot of Beatles stuff was starting to play, and I fell in love with that. And so I've just been following that path ever since, learning instruments, learning about production, writing, being in bands, everything that has to do with music, for a good 58 years now, and continuing on basically for as long as I can.
Incredible. And I mean, the listeners who don't know about you are going to get a little taste during this interview because I'm going to try and dissect as much as possible in the time we have. And I'm going to try and keep it chronological, even though, like we sort of spoke about a little bit before that we started recording, your career is just so diverse. It's mind-blowing to me. And the fact that I've been listening to you for as long as I have is also mind-blowing to me because it's not like an obvious career path. You did your own band, and then you did this, and then you were engineering that, and then you were producing this, and then you're suddenly popping up in all these super kind of groups, and it's just like, what the heck? It's crazy. So I know you mentioned there that your uncle shoved a guitar in your hand. You were about 4 years old, and you kind of delved into the music world. So I'm not going to dissect into that too much, but what I would like to know is, tell me a little bit about two things here. And the one might be a little bit redundant because I know that you came to the States fairly young. But if possible, tell me a little bit about what the music scene in Santiago is like. And in addition, tell me what was the life decision that brought you or your family here to the States?
Well, basically what happened was I was born in 1962, and somehow I ended up in Zurich, before I could even speak any Spanish, So I'm guessing 63, 64. My grandmother took me to Zurich and separate. So my mom stayed back, and I spent a few years there. And I remember basically just Zurich stuff, Christmas, snow, Santa Claus, chocolate, Batman was starting on TV. My early memories of just like my grandmother was really into listening to all kinds of music, so a lot of opera, a lot of Charlie Parker, so early stuff like that. And then we kind of the whole family got back together and met up in Panama for a year in 67, and then we all moved to Mexico City in 68. So I was living in Mexico City in 68, and at that time it was very much like a parallel universe to the States, with rock music being played. My parents and their neighbors would bring over like Sabbath and Hendrix, and I was already into the Beatles, so I got to listen to all that stuff. I started to pick up some of that stuff and feel the energy playing guitar, electric guitar. My uncle Peter that I told you about, he would bring his band, and very often they rehearsed at the house, and so there was a full setup for me to play around with when I was a kid. Now this is very unusual because a lot of people don't have this kind of environment where your parents are also musicians or in their case more entertainers, but the environment was very much conducive to there being instruments and music always going on. And then basically when I was around 12 years old, we went to visit my Aunt Frankie, who lived in Laurel Canyon, and I just stayed. And this would have been last day of 74. Next thing you know, I'm learning English, and because I had quite a good the schools in Mexico City were quite advanced already. I could just catch up with learning English because I was learning stuff that I already knew.
Yeah.
And that's what basically started. Like, I was now in Laurel Canyon, and then living off of the Sunset Strip next to the Whiskey and the Roxy. I was right in the middle of it all. I went to Bancroft Junior High School, and there I met Hillel Slovak and Jack Irons. Really funny how we met, and I'll tell a little later. But I met Jack. Basically, they had a Kiss band, cover band.
Amazing.
They would wear the outfits, and so Jack was playing on a show. Jack and Hillel ended up, obviously, as people know him from the Chili Peppers and stuff, but also Jack and 11, etc., and Pearl Jam later on. Anyway, Jack was wearing a Gene Simmons costume, and homeroom is this. I don't know if you guys have homeroom, but it's like a 20 minutes every day before you start school. It's this class you just kind of get grounded and whatever. So I didn't know him, and I barely spoke any English. And he was walking towards me to sit behind me, and Gene Simmons' outfit has this big, the cod piece, the very kind of
yeah.
armored thing. And I thought this must be really protective, and for some reason I just kind of punched him in the dick. And he goes, "Ow, you asshole!" And I was like, I'm sorry. I thought it was protective. Anyway, tells Hillel, there's this kid, blah, blah, that you just punched me, such an asshole. I go, wait, what does he look like? Oh no, that guy, that dude's a really good guitar player. I heard him play the other day. We should ask him to come jam with us, So that's how Hillel, Jack, and I started. And that was when we were like basically 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
And that led quite an intense I know I'm running around in the
No, it's cool.
The question was about Chile because I didn't come back to Chile until 2010 to meet my real father, who was also a musician, a very famous one. So that's why, like, since then I've gotten to know a lot of the Chilean bands and Chilean artists, and I play with a lot of them. So I don't know how to connect this to you, but that's basically that was the beginning of in the States. That's where it all started for me, and that led to a lot of other things, obviously.
Yeah. Well, let's segue from there because you mentioned Jack, and obviously, I know about 11. It actually looks like you've got a little 11 poster behind you.
Yes,
I'm not sure.
That's actually our very first album, which is not even on streaming.
Amazing.
So this year would be the CD packaging, which the first made. That bit you threw out completely, and the CD's inside. You see?
Yeah.
The reason they made it like this is so. See how the vinyl is there? It could basically fit inside the vinyl thing until they made CD racks, and then they got together with the furniture people, and then suddenly it was so that's a pretty rare thing. So kind of I like to, it's one of the it's obviously a very important thing in my life, the whole thing with 11 and meeting Natasha and Jack,
of course,
three of us. But yeah, so sorry, you were asking about
I was gonna just say, could we possibly talk about 11 a bit? I mean, I want to be sensitive to the Natasha thing. So
Yeah,
obviously, if you want to talk about her and pay our respects, then by all means. I had some stuff that I thought I would not ask because it's obviously a sensitive
you can ask
situation.
anything you want, my friend. You can ask anything you want. Well, before I get to 11, basically, just gonna do a quick run through what happened with Hillel and Jack. So we started playing together our first bands, and we started writing songs together for the first time. And then we called ourselves Anthem, and it was Anthem with an E. And then we made we made stickers and T-shirts, and suddenly we found out there was an Anthem with an E just over the hill in the valley. We were living in Hollywood, and so we had to think on our feet, and we changed it to Anthem with a Y, and kind of like sharpied in all the Y's onto the stickers or whatever. But that first band was pretty amazing because imagine we got every day after school we'd go to Jack Irons's bedroom and spend hours every day learning about playing together and writing and jamming. Then later on, we had a four-piece with a bass player named Todd. And then when Todd decided to concentrate on his studies when we were in 11th grade, Flea became our bassist, and basically he didn't play bass yet. He was a trumpet player,
Yeah,
and he came to my house and Hillel's house, and we went through the songs because we had a battle of the bands, the Gazaris, which is this place that's not there anymore. It's called the Key Club now, I think. And that was all like in the 70s. And Anthony Kiedis was also in Fairfax. This is all in Fairfax High School by then. But he was doing more of the acting stuff, and so he became kind of our MC. And later on, obviously that became the Peppers. So
yeah,
we morphed into a band called What Is This, and we put out two records. One with Dave Jordan that produced Alice in Chains and Jane's Addiction, and the other one with Todd Rundgren. And that's right around that time is when I met Natasha, and I had a dream I was going to meet her. And the next day she walked into my life, basically. I even had a dream with a name. I didn't see her face, but I said, my name is Natasha. We're going to meet. And it's actually in the documentary that they did about me. And so anyway, so she joined the band, and then Hillel and Jack basically little by little went back to the Chili Peppers, which they had originally formed, even though they decided to stay with me for the first What Is This record. So that you see the Chili Peppers' first album has Cliff Martinez and Jack Sherman on drums and guitar. Anyway, now she's part of What Is This. Jack leaves, and Natasha and I decided to form a band called Walk the Moon. I don't know if you knew about this.
yeah. I did. Yeah,
Yeah, and so Walk the Moon becomes a prototypical, basically our little experimental ground for different textures that are not restricted by having to perform it as a band or a rock ensemble. So
yeah,
after this, and then Hillel passed away sadly. He was really young. Natasha, Jack, and I decided to form 11 in 1990. And that's what leads us up to 11.
yeah,
So Natasha and I are already connected in such a deep way, not only living together and being together as a couple, but just our musical connection was uncannily, like it was almost I don't know, like almost spiritual, like a weird, like we were one thing. A lot of our friends, kids would call us both Alan and Natasha. That's just the way they perceive us as one
yeah.
thing. And yeah. So that's how 11 began in 1990-91.
Well, what I was going to ask with Natasha, and firstly, super, super sorry for your loss there.
Thank you.
I've seen you talk about her many times, and the light in your eyes when you talk about her it's still present.
Yeah,
It's
of course.
so lovely to see. Um, from a relationship point of view, was it ever weird, like some couples, to
Hmm.
to kind of dissect this away from music for a second? Some couples, yeah, they can barely be around each other, let alone work together, live
Yeah.
together, play together, socialize, talk. It's like you're in each other's space so much. And I've heard you talk about her in interviews about how, you were almost these opposites that fit with each other so
Yeah.
well. But were there ever times where it kind of, and I'm not trying to be too personal here, but where it was kind of like, I want a song like this, and she wants a song like that, and come on, man, but you had to tread lightly because it might affect how things are outside of the band practice room.
I mean, not really. And the reason being that we were stronger together than we were separate. And also we were kind of both. both we need the other person to help complete the process. We kind of push each other towards something, and we definitely had very specific roles that kept switching. Like her like I'm a really off the cuff, self-taught, fearless, I'll try anything, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing kind of musician. Um, that has a lot of listening experience and a lifetime of absorbing music from all over the world. So a lot of that stuff shows up. And Natasha had this insane from birth, perfect pitch, able to memorize music completely. She could hear a piece of music and know what everybody played immediately, remember what everyone played, and she didn't even need a piano to or an instrument to compose. She just heard it all in her head. So in a way, these two opposites, when we came together, it just really worked. And we had, very often she would like, when you writing with someone, you usually need to try the thing and kind of
Yeah.
play it yourself to see if it's working. And she didn't have to do that. And she didn't like it when I was like, "Hey, wait, I'm like, but
Trying to process.
I have to try to play this so I can know what it's doing." So there was some funny moments there, but I mean, overall, it just was we started to like forget like who started what melodic thought, or who finished it, and how did we get there. It was very much like that. So all the 11 music is very much a collaboration, even though some of the songs were started by either me or her.
Yeah.
And you can kind of, you know anything that's a little more knucklehead, you would think is me, and very often it is. And then some of the stuff that is, much, much more advanced compositionally or harmonically, you think it's Natasha, but sometimes it was me too. So it's after years it started to blur. And when we first met, because she had the perfect pitch, she never liked having it, and also it meant that a certain kind of like she liked 443, like everything being tuned just a little sharp.
Yeah.
But if things were out of tune or off in a certain way, like some people just go, oh, that's kind of sour. But for her, it was actually painful.
Yeah.
It was actually like she felt nauseous, and so it was hard for me to introduce her to certain music. It took her a while to get used to hearing certain things, and like if things were in a different tonality, like I mean, pitch wise, and
Yeah.
yeah, and it just, but it eventually, it didn't take her long, and she just became very. I mean, that was what she always wanted. She grew up in a very strict, at the Soviet times, a classical kind of schooling, and they were grooming her to be one of the great composers there, because she just had that kind of talent. She
Yeah.
was marked very early on to like, she's going to be one of the greats. But she only wanted to rock. She wanted to get
That's
that.
awesome.
She wanted to come to the West. She wanted to get signed to Motown. She said she was going to get signed to Motown when she was 15, and everyone laughed at her. And next thing you know, she gets signed to Motown. And
Amazing.
yeah, so that was just it always worked. And then later on when we did Euphoria Morning with Chris Cornell, that just kind of extended it. The three of us had the same kind of connection, and that's why Euphoria Morning is such a successful record in terms of the artistically speaking, the music on
Beautiful.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, thank you. And so yeah, anyway.
Well, listen, so we're gonna get to that because that is easily one of my top albums.
Mine too.
So here's like where I started to have trouble kind of putting questions together, because I was like, man, what do I talk about? Because, not to bypass 11 completely, but in my memory, and I'm sure it was probably happening before that I even realized, but I start paying attention to the linear notes of a lot of the albums I'm buying at the time.
Yeah.
And I start to see your name popping up in credits everywhere,
Yeah.
like everywhere. Sometimes as a songwriter, sometimes as a performer or a musician, sometimes
Hmm.
as an engineer or a producer.
Hmm.
Um, so I've got a couple names to just drop for the listeners to get an idea. And this isn't even all of them, but some of the credits, collabs, appearances, whatever you want to call them, include Chris Cornell,
Hmm.
Queens of the Stone Age, PJ Harvey, Arctic Monkeys, them Crooked Vultures, Mark Langerhang. It just goes on and on and on. So
No, that's in there
this is
too.
oh yeah, no doubt's in there. In fact, we're gonna get to them soon because I got some engineering questions.
Okay, cool.
But so this again is possibly a slightly strange question, but do you think that these appearances were simply a matter of timing because after years of hard work, people start to recognize you and you maybe have more time available because 11's not really happening anymore?
Yeah.
Or is it a matter of, did you consciously decide, okay, well, if 11's kind of finished, I'm going to go like balls to the wall and get involved with as many things as possible.
Yeah.
What was going on in your mind over here?
Well, I mean, in terms of it's quite interesting. I would say it's more to do with just the way things flowed, because when 11 started, uh, we ended up being really connected to Soundgarden and Pearl Jam touring together. And the reason was, first of all, Eddie Vedder was a friend of Jack Irons, and they wanted Jack to be the drummer originally when the band first formed, Pearl Jam. And Aaron Jacobitz, who was my friend and manager of What Is This in high school, ended up uh, being not only introducing me to Natasha because he worked at A&M Records, but also signing Soundgarden to A&M. And so we already knew about Soundgarden in the 80s. And then Kim used to listen to What Is This? So there was this connection. So we all became friends. And then obviously because of Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam, actually 11 had this amazing tour booked where we're going to open for Nirvana and the Peppers, right? And it was just when Nirvana, when It Smells Like Teen Spirit was just coming out, everything was about to break. And Pearl Jam's label had more power, and they basically took our tour from under us, And then they felt so bad that they invited us to open for them for like a year and a half or two. So all the early Pearl Jam shows in the States and then Europe, where it was 11 opening up. So it ended up being 11 had really bad luck with labels. Labels were not supportive ever, in the sense that they would, yes, they would sign us, yes, they would pay for the recording, and then they would just put the record out there, not really do any promotion, because we were also like, a lot of people considered it very difficult to sell the band because it was confusing. Three-piece, there's an organ, there's a guy and a girl that both sing. It's rock, it's heavy, but it's also very poppy, but it's also very kind of proggy, and it's kind of grungy, but we've kind of fit with all these things, but we had our own world of music in a sense, And so we became kind of the band's band. A lot of musicians just appreciated us, and they, like, Soundgarden would take us on the road, and that's how the whole connection with the friendship with Chris, and so then 11 got signed to A&M because of Chris. After Soundgarden took that break, after they broke up the first time, um, Chris stayed with us for a while and invited the president of A&M, who basically gave us a record deal. And Natasha and I were ballsy enough to ask him for that record deal money as a single chunk to buy a studio for the house with,
Cool.
which became the Studio 11 AD, where we did Euphoria Morning, 11, Avant-Garde Dog, Howling Book, No Doubt, Queens of the Stone Age, Mark Lanegan, Jimmy Eat World, you name it, all the stuff like 80s plus. He used the death metal first two records,
Yeah.
where I would mix desert session stuff. This became like the center that was kind of like the LA version of Rancho de la Luna,
Yeah.
And that was 100% because of Chris, And so here I am now. I've got the studio that I've designed and was purchased, and we started recording, and I started learning about. I already knew about recording because Natasha and I had studio setups, and since I was a kid, and my uncle had his band rehearsing at the house, they also had recording equipment, so I already knew something enough, And I just jumped in and learned on the job, and we did, Euphoria Morning, which I recorded and then mixed. Obviously I'm physically mixing, but Natasha and Chris are saying, let's do this, let's do that, try this, whatever. 11 last in. And so then suddenly, No Doubt, here's Euphoria Morning, and then is aware of 11 stuff, and then they asked me to record the record, to be engineer.
Yeah.
And at first I said no because I was scared shitless. Like, what do I mean? Like, we're talking like these budgets were like $1 million this and this and that. Studios are $3.5 grand, $3 grand a day, and I was like, no. And the more I said no, the more money they offered.
Amazing. That was
I
the
said, no,
Return to
you don't
Saturn
understand. It's
record.
not that. I said, fine. Okay, look, I'll come in, and if I can't pull it off, I'll fire myself, you know. And I went in, and it just kind of like, even though it's a massive console and there hadn't been around, but all the basic principles were there. So I just kind of started doing it, and it worked. And so now I've got more credits that are appearing, you know, and Natasha and I start to produce stuff because we did Euphoria Morning. So we start producing bands, both of us, me engineering, her and I both producing musically, and then it just starts the word starts to. It's not that we didn't really want 11 to not be active. It's just that we got, you know, first of all, we opened up for Queens of the Stone Age. We became friends, you know, during the avant-garde dog period because Rated R had just come out. So next thing you know, we're doing. Josh invites us to do desert sessions, you know, and I record stuff for Queens. I record the Rated R B-sides. And next thing we get invited to do to play on songs for the deaf, and I write Hanging Tree,
Yeah,
and I'm playing like, you know. Horns and ebos and theremins, and Tasha's playing keys. So we're kind of like, in a way, we're you know, and Jack had left for Pearl Jam, so we got Greg Upchurch to do avant-garde, and that touring that we did with Soundgarden in the '96, and a few shows in 2000 opening for Queens. And we always wanted to just continue doing 11, but we were frustrated with you know, the labels, you know.
of course.
So Howling Book we put out on our own. We did everything on our own. As we recorded at the same time as Songs for the Deaf, and we were hoping to continue doing, but obviously Natasha got diagnosed with cancer, and we did do one more recording session, which has like 5 songs, which I need to finish. But it wasn't so much that we were like, oh, 11's not doing anything. We were always hoping that it'll come back around. So we started to produce. We started to be in, you know, Natasha and I joined Queens of the Stone Age for Lullabies touring. I played on the record. Then I engineered Era Vulgaris and mixed it. And you know, that whole association, you know, just made it so that I kept popping up into more stuff. You know, then Josh was really concerned. I'm just going to keep going here because it's
Yeah,
so.
please do. Please do.
So when Natasha passed away, he was really worried that I was going to be able to survive that, you know?
Yeah.
And he was right. I was in a very like, so he said, first thing he did is like, he said, okay, you're going to come with me to Rancho. We're going to work with this band called Arctic Monkeys. I said, oh, I love Arctic Monkeys. Yeah, I want you to record the album. So we did Humbug at Rancho, right? And he said, well, you know, just form this band with John Paul Jones and Dave Grohl, and I'd love for you to come and record me doing the vocals and guitars. And I actually tracked a few more songs, three or four songs on there as well, completely on my own. And like the credit's a little funny because it just says engineer, but I definitely creatively did more stuff than that. And then he goes, okay, we're going to be on the road. You're going to be, you know, help us out live. You're going to be the 4th member for the live shows. You know, I ended up on a few photos, but you know, everyone kind of says, you know, three piece, but there wasn't a single Crooked Vulture show that didn't have me on stage as well. To the point where they even walked off stage and left me doing a solo. You know what I mean?
I know I've seen those clips. They're all over YouTube. And there's a great one where Mark actually talks about how him and some other people went to them Crooked Vultures shows, and
Yeah.
how you know, even though it's got these huge names behind it, a lot of people said that oh man, we couldn't take our eyes off the other guy. Like, there's a great video clip where they talk about
Oh,
that.
oh, it's so sweet. Yeah, I mean, you know, you know, on the other hand, I understand, like, if you're going to be marketing somebody, everyone's so known, and then you got the who's that guy, you know,
Yeah.
person. But I've been inside stuff, and like you were talking about liner notes earlier, you know, and a lot of the newer generations, they just do the streaming thing, and they don't really. Some, of course, there's many that get involved with figuring things out, how it all connects, and read the liner notes. That's when you can see that I've been a part of all this stuff. But you can see the way I'm describing it, it's just like, you know, Josh was concerned for me. So, you know, it was a really beautiful thing. So next thing you know, I'm here, I'm there, I'm engineering stuff. I'm in Crooked Vultures. Now, Desert Sessions was where I met Mark Lanegan. So Mark and I became really great friends, and we did a lot of collaborations even before Bubblegum, where I did 4 songs completely just him and I. And then we started off this long relationship of artist and producer where I would play and him and I would produce the records, and I would, like, help him with the writing of the instrument stuff, and we did like 6 records like that. Um,
Amazing.
we were supposed to do the next one, right when he passed away. We were a few months off from gathering together in Portugal to do the next record.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, all these things started to just connect. PJ Harvey I met at Desert Sessions. So then she asked me to be part of the Hope Six, and she was living in her life for a few years in the 2000s, and her and Natasha and I would get together all the time. So there was this amazing friendship besides the musical collaboration. So I'm touring with Polly, and it's funny because just recently she asked me to. I played Seattle, and she came. She was there with her band, and then she asked me to go on stage with them for the encore. It's like, playing together again. It was such an incredible thing. I feel really blessed, with all these great friendships and musical connections. Um, and Chile happened. So at the end of the Crooked Vultures touring, first of all, I wrote Spark and recorded it right before the end, right? And
Great
that was,
record.
yeah, my album for Natasha, which was the beginning of the real healing was me being able to communicate through music. And when I was making that record, I could feel her presence in the room. I My mother was staying with me. She was fighting cancer. She passed away from it eventually, and I was taking care of her. But meanwhile, she was taking care of me for those 4 days where I just went into the control room, brought certain instruments in my mind that I saw as the palette for Spark and a few mics, and I just went at it 4 days. The entire record was written and recorded. And so now I've got Spark in my hand, and I want to put it out on my own. Even made CDs, and then Josh heard it, said, "No, no, 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 I have to help you put this out." So Ipecac put out Spark, and then he said, "You gotta meet your real father. It's been 46 years. You have to meet him and you have a whole family." He realized that me connecting with the half of my roots was very important for me to heal. And so he said, "We're going to South America, and you're going to open up for us." So we came down, and then my uncle Peter set up a dinner to where I met my father and one of my brothers. I have 2 brothers in Chile. And we connected through, my brother and I connected straight away. And, it was a little bit odd at first because, he was a amazing artist himself, and that was part of that. And my mom was opening up for him, and they were touring together. And then he basically, she got pregnant, and then he didn't show up to marry her. Back then that's what you did.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of a big secret in the family. And then my grandmother ended up telling me when I was in my 20s, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, what?
What are you talking about? Okay. And so it took a long time to actually meet, but we hit it off straight away. And I had 4 wonderful years with him before he passed away. Actually, he passed away. There was 2 new moons in January 2014. My mom passed away on the first one, which is January 2nd. The next new moon was the 30th, and he passed away. So it was all like weird kind of connection thing there.
At least you got that time, I
Oh
know
yeah,
I know we
absolutely.
always want more time, but I
Yeah.
think I think Josh is right. I think things like that are very important, more than we realize.
Yeah, no, and I'm forever grateful to Josh for making that happen, and his instincts were, it was right. And then, I've got cousins and aunts and amazing, and 2 brothers, and this whole family in Chile. Every time I come and hang out for a while, we get together, and it's a beautiful thing. And I got my sister in LA, and her family, and my family, her husband and son, and so it's cool. And I've formed a kind of musical world here in Chile with my trio with Cote and Fellow, which is a Alain Johannes trio. We're gonna make a record now,
Cool.
uh, very soon, and hopefully out by spring. Yeah, and so that's kind of like, the whole connection to Chile kind of came back and cemented itself. Um,
Amazing.
I got to play, Chris Cornell came and we played together one of the festivals here, and he also invited me to go on tour in 2011, and that was amazing memories, to be on stage with Chris, in front of like 80,000 people at a Chilean festival. Like
Yeah.
they say, look at that guy's from Chile. What?
Yeah. That's amazing, man. Um, so, I know we've brought it up a couple times, but let's dig into the Euphoria Morning album just for a couple of minutes, if you're
Yeah,
willing. Um, I mean, I mentioned it at the top of the interview. Easily one of my top 10 records. And for a debut record, I mean, I know Chris had released many records under
yeah,
Soundgarden, but for a debut, like, hey, I'm coming out as a solo kind of
well,
record,
yeah.
I know that it's not a real solo record because, like you say, you and Natasha are all over it. But can you share any stories or memories from the recording or the making of that record with me?
Well, absolutely. Um, I mean, he had all the songs, and he wanted a few more. So he basically said, "Hey guys, I'm gonna do a solo record. Let's hang out. I'll come down and bring a few of my stuff, and then let's develop some music together." So the period before the recording started, we already had the studio, remember, because we had done Avant-Garde Dog Bath, even though it came out after Euphoria Morning.
Yeah.
We already had recorded it. They had actually A&M asked us to postpone it so that we can concentrate on touring with Chris. But it was recorded before, so we already had this kind of like connection to our studio. And then Chris was really we had this amazing um way of working together that was quite surprising, that in terms of like the way that Natasha and I had this connection, we also had this connection with Chris. And he was really trusting and allowing us, and especially Natasha, in terms of arrangement and reharmonizing songs and things like that. So we developed uh and kind of put a lot of his the demo recordings and where the songs were kind of messed with them quite a bit, like to try different things and explore different possibilities, with this idea that there was all these possibilities for his voice to exist in very different, or obviously within the realm still, but like very R&B ish, and very kind of like um maybe folky, and like just a little bit away from the heavy all the time, even though there's lots of heavy singing on it. And he wanted to explore that too, and a lot of the songs were like that. And then we wrote some music for him that became, where he would write the melody and lyrics, and then we completed the song. So you Follow My Way, Mission, Pill of Your Bones, a Disappearing One. um and we just started to develop all these songs. And now here's the funny thing, like, we were basically developing into the state to ready for to be recorded, right? To be produced, ready to be produced, because we weren't supposed to produce the record. Daniel Lanois was actually set to produce that record,
Interesting.
and we were all working together, getting everything ready. And then came the day we were supposed to he was supposed to go and meet up with Daniel and start recording the solo record. And Daniel's people contacted and Chris and said that he was canceling all his projects for a while.
Hmm.
So Chris is like, "What what am I gonna do?" And Natasha goes, "What do you mean? What are we gonna do? Well, look at us. We got the studio. We're here now. Let's go." So that's what happened. We worked in secret almost for 7 months, and that 7 months was on and off because he would go home to Seattle a few weeks here and there. There were days, he lived in the back, in the guest room in the back, and so there were days where, like, "Hey, let's go to the beach. Oh, let's watch Mr. Show, another episode. Let's mess around with tones, explore guitar tones." And so it was this very fun, loose, and relaxed atmosphere. And obviously, we worked really hard, but there was nobody pressuring in terms of the time and in terms of what it's supposed to be like, sound like, with no pressure in terms of expectations or anything. We
Yeah.
finished it and presented it to the label. And I remember a little bit after it came out, they said, "Oh, well, sorry, didn't do as well," and we're like, "It's 700,000 copies. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Because back then it was like, "Oh, it's done." 3 million, 5 million, bands, but the solo artists, I think that was pretty amazing for considering the album is so musical.
It's an
And
incredible album.
thank you, and how long it's lasted, and it keeps garnering, getting new fans, and getting, as it travels through time. And I'm finding this with a lot of the 11 stuff too. It's really holding its own and lasting, and bringing in new fans.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty amazing thing, that experience. Euphoria Morning was just like, like he trusted us to, like, comp his vocals, and we had this amazing uh kind of freedom and exploring things. And we didn't we weren't afraid of trying stuff. And we had all these amazing friends, to come in, like Matt Cameron and Bill Rieflin and Vic Andrizo and Jason Faulkner, Rick Markman, Greg Upchurch. It's just like this cool. Uh, this the three of us had this kind of nucleus, and then all these talented people would come in and be part of this stuff. And then we went out on the road, and not enough shows for sure, but we played some pretty incredible shows. And at the time there was some resistance because everyone was expecting heavy music, and yet those who were there for some of those, we'll never forget them, those shows.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that for a bit, because I mean, you guys, and you alluded to it earlier, but you become Chris's touring band, and I know that you've toured with Josh and Queens and Sound City Players and them Crooked Vultures and. So, something I ask a lot of the guys that I talk to is, have you got any kind of things that you try and do while you're on the road to, remain sane when you're gone from home for long periods of time, stay healthy? Have you got any sort of, I don't want to necessarily call them rituals, but have you got any sort of road rituals or things that you try and do to enjoy your overall touring experience more?
Yeah. Well, I mean, because I lived in so many different countries, and growing up, I really got used to being comfortable wherever I am, and kind of adapted myself to not needing. I mean, of course, I've had homes, but the last couple of years, I literally have not stopped. I have my little rental house in Chile. It's the only place actually is solidly there for me. But I went on the road in February, and I just got back, and literally the entire time I'm somewhere.
Yeah.
For a week or two, or 2 days or 3 days on tour or whatever. So for me, Natasha and I were both very much into exploring cities and the culture, the differences and the similarities, and also foodies. I don't know. She stayed skinny always, but and Chris too. But I didn't have that. So, I'm always fighting my weight. But obviously, like finding a really great restaurant, and then walking through a beautiful park, and so touring is so exciting in that way, because you can get up in the morning, and if you have a few hours, go exploring, get a feel of what it's like there, architecture, museums, all that stuff. And then on the road, just daydreaming, looking out the window, books, playing games, backgammon, whatever, having conversations. That's a lot of fun. A big fun part of being on the road is having time to, with your bandmates and people on the road, like the crew is going and experiencing things. We would very often do like picnics or day trips, or like JPJ, Jeff Jones would go, hey Al, there's a ancient instrument museum exhibit in Boston, and so he called me in the morning, and so we went there, and we got to see harpsichords and viola da gambas and all Stradivari and all this cool stuff. And it's really quite exciting. There's always something to do. I usually stayed away from the particular like party side of it, like over drinking or I was never into drugs, but a couple nights here and there. But it became really it's just like a vacation. It's like a holiday where like you're also playing music and somehow someone gives you money at the end.
Yeah, yeah, amazing.
So, it works out and like it's still like that way for me. I also love meeting the fans and getting that connection and that is a lot of like I love after every show that I play, I always wait hang out for an hour or two. People coming up with vinyl and posters and things to sign or take photos with and tell you beautiful stories about how your music has touched them or moved them or helped them in any way. And that's that's connects, it makes the circle complete, we can't really exist in a vacuum. And it makes me feel good, and you're able to weather all kinds of bullshit that the world can throw at you, knowing that you're doing something that you love and that other people love, and that you're trying to make the world a better place for others than yourself, so it's
That's
cool.
beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I imagine, and this isn't one of my questions, but I imagine that you and John Paul Jones would have meshed together quite well, because not to make comparisons, but you're both kind of similar in regards to, and I don't mean this in any kind of condescending way, but I've often felt like John Paul Jones, even though he was obviously in the biggest band ever,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's the overlooked guy. Everyone talks about Jimmy Page. Everyone talks about John Bonham and Robert Plant. And John Paul Jones, he was like the glue that held that together, in my opinion. Played all these wonderful and weird and,
I think it might be something. There's a subtlety to that, and there's a depth and a multi-layered thing that happens with people like JPJ, where they're naturally that's their life, is to create, and it's not so much looking for spotlight, or they love to be part of and I say that because I feel the same. I love to feel like I'm part of a family, part of a group, and together you make this amazing thing. And some people are more natural with being the face of it, or the voice of it, or the ambassador of it, like the person up front that kind of in a way sells it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and anyone that knows, that has a little more that looks a little more deeply into things, will realize how important and essential and JPJ is to Led Zeppelin.
Well, I feel this. I feel the same with you. I mean, like, you look at the Queens of the Stone Age records you're involved with, and I love those bands. So it's not to take any kind of shot at those bands. Talented guys with or without you, I'm sure. But there's certain things that, even when I saw the Sound City Players tour, when you guys came to, I can't remember the venue you played, but you came to Camden. I was living in London at the time.
Oh yeah, it was the O2, wasn't it?
Something like that. Yeah, nice venue. And I saw that, and I mean, like, for every essential singer they brought out, or star power person they brought out, there were certain players on that stage keeping that show together the whole time, and you were one of them. There's no doubt about it. Like, and I'm not trying to, blow up your ego or anything like that, but like, it's just, I like to think of myself as someone who does, especially with music, I try and dig deep and go, man, what's the elements that makes this magic and that magic, and why is it not on this and that? And you start putting certain things together, and then you talk to guys like yourself, and you go like, listen, don't get me wrong, you've had an incredible career. I mean, there's guys who would kill for your career, but guys like you should be freaking household names. It blows my mind, man.
But I mean, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, I think it has something to do with my. I think it's not so much an ability, just how I am as a person. I love being part of a team, love being part of a family, and I think people recognize that. And because I'm a really good asset, I'm a team player, and I love to help to make thing great. I mean, Josh is an incredible genius
Yeah.
musician and band leader, and we always had this thing since we met, and with Natasha and Josh and I too in the beginning, that there was this. He knew he could trust us and rely on us, and just like Dave, bringing me along for Sound City. We opened up that tour with an 11 set where Foo Fighters were basically 11, my backing band,
Yeah.
interpreting 11 songs, and then playing bass with Goss and Masters and with Lee Ving, and they grew up with Fear, and I love Fear so much, and it was such a magical experience. Um, and it's funny because I look back and I go, part of me, if you look at it from a certain, if you look at the list and it seems impossible, or like, how did this happen? But then I think back on how everything led to everything else, and it was just a natural. I think because I was open and welcoming, and present, and able to be part of something, and I was in the room when something was happening because it all kept connecting with itself.
Yeah.
Like, Polly had such a great experience and we all did a desert sessions that we became friends, and now she's got me as a friend, and then she's making a record, and she thinks of me, as being a possible member for this beautiful band that she put together
Yeah.
for Hope Six. And same thing goes with Josh. And even though in the beginning, I mean, he knew it could be an amazing addition to the live band, but also he wanted to keep me close, to make sure I didn't do anything stupid, after Natasha passed away, which is almost like, he's looking out for me almost like a big brother or something, even though
Big
I'm
brother.
older, but he's taller.
It's always the tall ones, Alan.
Yeah.
um, all right. So listen, I know we're coming up to time. I'm gonna try and fit as much in as possible
Yeah,
here.
no, we're good, brother. We're good.
Amazing, thanks. So if I try and once again keep things in some kind of chronological kind of order, blah 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 blah, you land up essentially again, these things keep connecting.
Yeah.
Now, being a musician myself, I often hear a phrase, and sometimes it drives me a little bit nuts, but I'm sure you would have heard this. Certain opportunities come about, and
Mhm.
people go, "Man, you're lucky," right? You hear
Yeah.
that, right? And
Yeah.
I don't dispute it. You are lucky. Like, I look at myself as I'm the luckiest dude on the planet. That's how I feel about life, I try at least. But, you know, I I also know that those lucky opportunities, inverted commas, closed inverted commas, they come about through years of hard work. It's not like people are just calling you going, "Hey, Ellen, come and do the PJ Harvey record. Hey, Ellen." Yes, you've become friends and you've made these connections, but you've also worked to be in those rooms and you've worked to make these connections.
Yeah.
So, can you talk to me, if possible, about what do you think up and coming musicians can possibly do to try and create these so called lucky opportunities or network so that they might be able to find themselves in certain situations within their local music scenes?
Yeah. Um, I think well, obviously look inward and look at your connection to the music. Like, is it something that you absolutely have to do? Not only do you, like, obviously there can be a lot of uphill fights, but the fact that when your love for music and your connection to it and the ability to be creative, and what that gives you is its own reward in so many ways, and sometimes I have to pinch myself that anyone would actually, you know pay for me to have an amazing time being a musician. It's like, um, so I think once you're connected to music in that way, and you want to create daily, and you want to communicate through music, the human experience, I think that leaves you open enough and resonant enough to also then try to find people like yourself. And then when you're in a situation, musical situation, is to be the best possible ally for that situation. either as a band leader or as a band member, so everyone's kind of like, this is very important, because then you are an amazing asset to the music that is being created. And very often when I produce bands, I try to become an invisible member of the band, and see the vision through, and try not to, like, put a bunch of what I would do, but what would I do if I was in this band, more of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think just being a really cool person to be on stage with. Like, try to minimize egos. Are good in the sense that they help you navigate things, but don't to try to never get in the way of the musical process. um and be a good friend and ally to for music to be made and exist. I think that's one of the things that is, if I think of it, in any kind of intellectual way, that's helped me in my life, and has made this career happen the way that it has, is that I was present and able and willing to be assistive, in what was happening. And there's and also, like, the by example is how Josh has his satellite, his reach out, like desert sessions and all these different things. He goes, he basically is to be around people, or try to be the person that brings a lot of other things together and continues extending this family and inviting people in, and always being restless in the sense of, you know it's all process. It's not like you try to have this goal of, like, the best band or the best album or the best. You just, every day, you try to be, the best you can be, and make great things happen, and continue doing it as long as you can. um I think that the kind of mindset is, I guess, it's less career minded. I'm kind of old school that way. I was never really good at that part of it. And look, even with my Instagram, like, I have a fair amount of people, and I've been doing it for over 10 years, and I just kind of organically post things, and I don't know, like, my way as the smart thing in the algorithm, and how to beat it or cheat it, or how to get more views. Or I just kind of do what I do, and because that's more natural for me. and
Yeah.
and I'm just not built that way. And I know that the world is quite shifting all the time, but it wasn't that long ago where being a musician, there was no buying of vinyl. There was no recorded music yet. You just performed on the street, or for the church, or whatever. And so the period of time where music has been actually a career that can bring a lot of money is pretty short. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that it started, and it's still a possibility. But I'm lucky that we can supplement my folly by being a engineer, producer, mixer. It's all one thing to me.
Yeah.
But I can do that. So I guess just having, so it's not really a very clear answer. It's a very long answer. I'm kind of talking around it, but you know what I mean. I think that the advice is just just live it and enjoy it. And I guess once you're in it and you love it, just but guard it at all costs. Keep going, and whatever it takes.
That's amazing.
Mm.
Uh, Ellen, what do you think has been the hardest part about being a career musician for you personally?
Um, sometimes it's the negative chatter that you can get into, like, where you in your mind you have a certain worth, or a perception of your worth, and time passes, and like, you get looked over or discounted, or which is really, I try to really squash it. So it's a constant process to not get down, to get down. You're like, why didn't 11, like, we were so good, why weren't we? Or if only, like, with Natasha, she, wish she didn't get to see some of the fruits that I mean, things that the kind of um self chat, the negative self talk, which is very easy to succumb to because it appears all the time. If it's not helpful, then just let it be. Just best thing to ignore it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and meditation, you try to uh, quiet the mind or teach your mind to ignore negative thoughts, which the inner dialogue will be, oh, you never be this and you can't do that, or like you're getting old, or like whatever. It doesn't stop. It's, I don't know what the component is, but you can't suppress it. You just take away its power.
Yeah.
You just go, whatever, I'm not gonna listen to you.
Yeah.
And then wake up. I mean, it's such an incredible impossibility that we're even alive.
Yeah.
That it's a good thing to be mindful of that and thankful for each day, and that we can continue doing stuff. So, and especially we get to be musicians. We get to be create things, and have people enjoy that. So that's already such a big bonus.
Totally.
Um, yeah.
How important is it for you to still find time and create material, your own material, as both a solo artist or now with your trio, when you could probably very easily focus all your attention on producing or just doing features at this point in your career?
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's all, part of it. Like, I really feel a need right now. I spent, you know, um, last couple of years producing and touring. I mean, traveling to produce and tour. And it's time for me to, it's like a cycle, like I made Hum not that long ago, but I already feel the need to make new music. And actually would like to make new music more often. And I still have that, my little posts on Instagram where I'm improvising and creating, and every few days I have that need, and I need to put it out there, but to communicate with music. Um, but right now, definitely, I'm here trying to get my health together, and definitely the next thing that's going to happen is a trio record and a solo record, and then next year I'll get some Masters of Reality stuff happening. I mean, in 2025, I got Masters of Reality and some solo stuff. I just part of the new record, by the way. I'm part of the new lineup, or it's like the main lineup, but I just joined, so it's gonna be exciting to do some touring with Goss and Limi and Paul, and so looking forward to that. Yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be more stuff being made by me in the next few years, hopefully, God willing.
I look forward to it, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Alan, last question.
Hmm.
What do you think has either been the best piece of advice you've ever received in regards to having a music career? Or if you can't think of something like that, what do you think is something that you've picked up or learnt along the way that could be good advice for someone trying to have a music career?
Um, God, I think, my grandmother said something to me. Um, it's not really connected to music. She just, I don't know why she said this to me. I was really young. I didn't understand what she said. In context at the time, I was too young. But she said, "Darling, in this life, there's no victims, only volunteers."
That's
It's
great.
so weird shit to throw at somebody that's like 6 years old. But anyway, I just meant to me responsibility. Be responsible for yourself, and um, I think that if you just put in the hours, because you can put in the hours in many different ways. You don't have to sit there and shed on your instrument. You can listen to music. You can think about music. You can enrich your consciousness with all the beautiful art that's been made by humanity, and then also realizing the powerful effect that art and music has on a person's life, how it can help them cope with all kinds of awful things that life can throw our way. Then you realize that how powerful and sacred and special it is, and take it seriously, and know that there's you can do an incant or incantation of this power by just, being creative and and finding joy in communicating an experience through art. Um, and knowing full well that it has this amazing effect, and can help people cope and inspire them. I get inspired all the time. I constantly finding new music, from jazz or classical or rock or any genre, because I'm so into music from all over the world. Just recently started listening to this amazing Corsican vocal music, and I'm always looking out for bands, and it's inspiring, and but in turn it kind of feeds you, and then it makes you better. It makes you more in tune. And I think the music is always there. It's just literally like a transmission waiting for a receiver,
Yeah.
and you plug into something. Because I never really feel like I'm making what I'm making, or creating what I'm creating. I'm literally just plugging into something that I've prepared my entire life to translate, into reality somehow.
Yeah.
Uh, that's what it feels like. I mean, and yeah, so I'm not very good with the short answers.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right, Alan, that is incredible, dude. I can't thank you enough for your time. This has been
Thank you.
such a treat for me. I feel like a kid on Christmas Day, this conversation.
Oh,
And I do a lot of these. So to do these, like where you're like, man, I'm talking to Alain Johannes, bro. It's like amazing. I wish you nothing but the best, man. Good luck with the health stuff. Good luck with the music stuff.
thank you so
Just
much,
stay
brother.
safe
Thank
on
you.
your travels,
Thank you. All right,
Thank you.
brother. Thank you so much, and thank you, everybody.
Peace. Okay, Alain Johannes, everybody. I'd like to once again publicly thank Alain for his time. I want to thank each and every one of you for your time. I truly appreciate the support. I know I say it in every episode, but please don't forget to give us a rating or review. Likewise, if you need some guidance with your band or your artist career, drop me a DM. I'm always down to talk music. My name is Travis Mark. Be diligent, work hard, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.